You're about to drop $75 on groceries. Celery, tomatoes, some sad-looking kale you'll pretend to eat. But here's the thing nobody tells you. That produce section you're standing in? It might be the worst place in Canada to buy vegetables. Not because the broccoli looks questionable. Not even because the prices make you want to cry. But because of what's happening behind those shiny displays that you can't see. And trust me, once you know, you'll never look at that romaine lettuce the same way again. So which stores should you avoid? And more importantly, why? Keep watching. Because we're about to pull back the curtain on Canada's grocery industry. And yeah, you might want to rethink where you're shopping this weekend. Let's start with the elephant in the room, the lobster in the grocery cart. Loblaws. Yeah, the massive chain that owns everything from no frills to real Canadian superstore. You walk into one of their stores, and it feels like a wonderland of fresh produce. Mountains of apples, pyramids of oranges, enough organic spinach to feed a yoga studio for a year. But here's what they don't advertise on those big promotional signs. Loblaws has been caught in more produce scandals than any other major chain in Canada. We're talking about systemic issues here. In 2023, multiple investigations revealed that a significant portion of their fresh vegetables were being stored for weeks, sometimes months, before hitting your cart. The romaine lettuce you grabbed yesterday could have been harvested 45 days ago. That's a month and a half of sitting in cold storage, slowly losing nutrients, flavor, and any resemblance to actual fresh food. And it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Internal whistleblowers from Loblaws distribution centers have reported that produce quality checks are basically a joke. One former employee in Brampton said that during peak seasons, they'd process over 15,000 boxes of vegetables per day, with maybe, and I'm being generous here, 5 spot checks. That's a 0.03% inspection rate. You've got better odds winning a Tim Hortons roll-up-the-rim contest. The real kicker, their pricing strategy. Loblaws knows Canadians are desperate for groceries, so they mark up vegetables by an average of 47% over wholesale costs. That organic cucumber for $4.99 cost them about $1.75. That's not retail markup. That's highway robbery with a vegetable peeler. But wait, there's more. Remember when Loblaws got caught fixing bread prices? That wasn't just bread. A class action lawsuit filed in 2024 alleged that they were coordinating produce prices with other major chains. Tomatoes, peppers, onions, all allegedly price fixed. The case is still ongoing, but internal documents leaked to CBC showed executives literally discussing how to keep vegetable prices inflated during the pandemic. While Canadians were struggling to afford food, Loblaws posted record profits. In 2023 alone, they made over $2 billion in profit. That's billion with a B. And here's the thing about Loblaws that really gets under my skin. They own so many brands that you think you're avoiding them, but you're not. Shopping at No Frills because you think it's cheaper? That's Loblaws. Picking up groceries at Zehrs in Ontario? Loblaws. Real Canadian Superstore. Your independent grocer, Provigo in Quebec. All Loblaws. They've got their hands in everything. It's like trying to avoid Amazon. Good luck. Now let's talk about their supply chain. Loblaws sources a huge chunk of their produce from mega farms in California and Mexico during winter months. Nothing wrong with that on paper. Except these farms have been repeatedly cited for using pesticides that are literally banned in Canada. But once those vegetables cross the border, suddenly they're fine to sell. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is supposed to catch this stuff. Supposed to, but they're so underfunded and overwhelmed that most shipments sail through without a second glance. A 2024 study by the University of Guelph found that produce from Loblaws stores contained pesticide residue levels that were, quote, concerningly high in 31% of samples tested. That means roughly 1 in 3 vegetables you buy might be contaminated with chemicals you definitely don't want in your body. But hey, at least they're organic, right? Even some of their organic produce tested positive for synthetic pesticides. How does that even happen? Either through contamination during transport or, and this is the darker possibility, fraudulent labeling. Metro. If you live in Ontario or Quebec, you know Metro. They've positioned themselves as the slightly upscale option. Better lighting. Produce that looks like it was photographed for Instagram. But Instagram is all filters and lies. And so is Metro's produce section. Metro has a dirty little secret. Their turnover rate is abysmal. What does that mean for you? It means the vegetables sitting on those pristine displays have been there for way too long. Industry standard for fresh produce rotation is 3 to 5 days max. Metro averages 8 to 12 days. We're talking about lettuce that's been sitting in the same spot since you were trying to figure out what to watch on Netflix last weekend. Here's how we know. Consumer advocacy groups have been running sting operations. They'll mark a specific piece of produce with invisible UV ink, then come back days later. At Metro stores across Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, they found the same marked vegetables still on shelves over a week later, just moved around to look fresh. That bell pepper in the front of the display was in the back 3 days ago. Same pepper. Just playing musical chairs so you think it's new? But the real issue with Metro isn't just old vegetables. It's their sourcing practices. Metro has partnerships with industrial farms that prioritize shelf life over nutrition. They buy vegetable varieties that are specifically bred to last longer in transport and storage. Sounds good until you realize these varieties have significantly lower vitamin and mineral content. A tomato from Metro might have 40% less vitamin C than one from a farmer's market. You're basically eating red water with a tomato costume on. And don't even get me started on their organic selection. Metro charges premium prices for organic produce, sometimes double the conventional price. Fair enough if it's actually organic. Except multiple investigations have found that Metro's organic verification process is sketchy at best. They rely on supplier certifications without doing their own testing. So when a farm in Mexico says their tomatoes are organic, Metro just takes their word for it. No follow-up, no verification, just trust. An undercover investigation by a Quebec consumer rights group in 2023 bought organic vegetables from Metro and had them independently tested. Nearly 20% came back positive for synthetic pesticides. That's just expensive regular vegetables with a fancy label, and you're paying twice as much for the privilege of being lied to. Metro also has this fun habit of pre-packaging vegetables in plastic containers. Seems convenient, right? Wrong. Those containers hide a multitude of sins. Bruised cucumbers turned to face the bottom. Moldy strawberries buried under fresh ones. Wilted lettuce camouflaged by one good leaf on top. It's like a produce version of catfishing. Looks great in the package. Disappointing when you get it home. The waste factor at Metro is also obscene. Because they overorder to make displays look abundant, they throw away an estimated 30% of their produce before it even reaches customers. That's almost a third of everything they stock going straight to the dumpster. And who do you think pays for that waste? You do. Through higher prices. You're literally subsidizing the vegetables they throw away. Number 3 on our list. Walmart. Yeah, I know. You're thinking Walmart has cheap vegetables. So what's the problem? The problem is you get what you pay for. And sometimes you get less than what you pay for. Sometimes you get vegetables that are barely vegetables anymore. Walmart's produce strategy is simple. Buy the cheapest possible product from the cheapest possible source, and pass some of those savings to customers while pocketing the rest. The nutritional value of Walmart vegetables is laughable. A study done by food scientists at McGill University compared nutrient density of vegetables from various retailers. Walmart produce came in dead last, across almost every category. Their spinach had 55% less iron than spinach from specialty stores. Their carrots had 40% less beta-carotene. You could eat twice as much Walmart produce and still not get the nutrition you'd get from higher quality sources. But here's where it gets really interesting. Walmart's cold chain management is a disaster. The cold chain is the system that keeps produce refrigerated from farm to store. Break that chain and produce spoils faster, loses nutrients, and becomes a bacteria playground. Walmart breaks that chain constantly. Distribution centers that are too warm, trucks that don't maintain proper temperature, store refrigeration units that barely work. Former Walmart employees have reported that store managers regularly turn up refrigerator temperatures to save on electricity costs. We're talking about produce that should be stored at 34 degrees being kept at 45 degrees. That might not sound like much, but that 11-degree difference can cut shelf life in half. Your broccoli is basically dying twice as fast as it should. And let's talk about Walmart's ethylene management, or complete lack thereof. Ethylene is a gas that fruits and vegetables produce naturally. Some produce, like apples and bananas, produce a lot, like lettuce and broccoli, are extremely sensitive to it. Walmart doesn't care. They'll put ethylene-producing fruits right next to ethylene-sensitive vegetables. Result? Your lettuce wilts in 2 days instead of lasting a week. The packaging at Walmart is another red flag. They use the cheapest possible containers and bags. These don't protect produce properly. They don't breathe right. They trap moisture, which leads to faster spoilage and mold growth. You buy cucumbers from Walmart and they're slimy 3 days later? That's not your fault. That's packaging designed to save Walmart 12 cents per unit while making your food go bad faster. Walmart also has a reputation for selling vegetables past their prime. They'll take produce that's borderline and mark it down 50%, which seems like a deal, until you realize you're buying vegetables that should have been thrown away yesterday. That clearance section with the sad-looking peppers and questionable zucchini? That's not a bargain. That's a compost bin with a price tag. Store number 4 might surprise you. Sobeys. Yeah. The chain that likes to position itself as quality-focused. The one with the fancy displays and the in-store bakeries. Well, surprise. Sobeys has some of the shadiest produce practices in the industry. Let's start with their labeling. Sobeys has been caught multiple times mislabeling produce origin. They'll slap a product of Canada sticker on vegetables that came from Mexico. Why does this matter? Because Canadian consumers will pay more for domestic produce. They think they're supporting local farmers. Nope. They're supporting deceptive marketing practices. In 2022, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency found that over 25% of produce items tested at Sobeys locations had incorrect origin labels. A quarter of their produce section. That's not a mistake. That's a business strategy. And they got fined for it. You know how much? $50,000. That's a rounding error for a chain that makes hundreds of millions in profit. It's basically the cost of doing business. Sobeys also has this interesting approach to organic certification. They'll buy produce from farms that are in the process of transitioning to organic, meaning they're not actually certified yet, and sell it as organic anyway. Technically, transition produce can't be labeled organic for 3 years after the farm stops using synthetic chemicals. Sobeys doesn't care. If it looks organic and the farm pinky promises they're trying to be organic, that's good enough apparently. The quality control at Sobeys is virtually non-existent. They rely entirely on supplier guarantees. No independent testing, no verification, just trust. And when that trust is violated, which happens regularly, Sobeys acts shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Then they issue a quiet recall that most customers never hear about and go right back to business as usual. Here's something particularly gross about Sobeys. Their produce handling practices are abysmal. Employees aren't properly trained on how to handle different types of vegetables. They'll stack heavy items on delicate greens. They'll spray everything with water regardless of whether that particular vegetable should be misted. Mushrooms getting sprayed with water? That's how you get slime in 36 hours. And Sobeys has been repeatedly cited for temperature violations. Health inspectors have found their produce sections running too warm, sometimes significantly too warm. We're talking about refrigerated sections hitting 50 degrees. That's not refrigeration. That's room temperature with a light breeze. Your vegetables are basically sitting out at a picnic, and you're paying refrigerated prices. The turnover at Sobeys is also terrible. Like Metro, they keep produce on shelves way too long. But unlike Metro, they don't even bother making it look fresh. You'll see wilted lettuce right next to crisp lettuce, both at the same price. It's like they're playing Russian roulette with your salad. Finally, number 5. Freshco, the discount arm of Sobeys that somehow manages to be even worse than its parent company. Freshco markets itself as fresh and affordable. In reality, it's neither. It's stale and deceptively expensive once you account for how fast everything spoils. Freshco's business model is buying produce that other stores reject. Not kidding. They have contracts with wholesalers to purchase B-grade and C-grade produce at steep discounts. What's B and C grade? Vegetables that are too bruised, too small, too old, or too ugly for premium stores. Freshco is basically the island of misfit vegetables. Nothing wrong with ugly produce, if it's still good, but Freshco takes it too far. They'll accept produce that's borderline spoiled, throw it in a cold room for a few days to firm it up temporarily, then put it out like it's fresh. That's why your Freshco tomatoes go from firm to mush in 24 hours. They were already on their last legs when you bought them. The pesticide levels on Freshco produce are concerning, because they buy rejected produce from multiple sources. There's zero consistency in agricultural practices. One batch of spinach might be fine. The next might be loaded with residues from chemicals you can't even pronounce. There's no way to know. You're basically playing contamination lottery every time you shop there. Freshco also has terrible storage practices. Many locations don't have adequate refrigeration for the volume of produce they stock. They'll cram too much into coolers that can't handle the load. Result? Uneven temperatures. Hot spots where vegetables spoil rapidly. Cold spots where produce freezes and turns to mush when it thaws. The staff training at Freshco is minimal at best. Employees aren't taught proper produce rotation. First in, first out? Never heard of it. They'll just stock new produce wherever there's space. You've probably grabbed what looked like a new package only to find disaster underneath. Here's the really sneaky part about Freshco. Their prices look low on the surface, but the unit prices are often higher than competitors because they sell smaller quantities. That bag of carrots for $2 contains half the weight of the $3 bag at other stores. You're actually paying more per pound, but the low sticker price tricks your brain into thinking you're getting a deal. And the quality is so bad that you end up throwing away 30 to 40% of what you buy. So that cheap broccoli? Not so cheap when half of it goes in the garbage 3 days later. You'd be better off paying more for quality that actually lasts. So what's the common thread here? All 5 of these chains prioritize profit over quality. They cut corners on storage, handling, sourcing, and verification. They rely on your ignorance in their marketing to keep you coming back. And it works because most Canadians don't have many alternatives. But you do have options. Farmers markets, local co-ops, independent grocers who actually care about what they're selling. Yeah, it might take more effort. You might pay slightly more upfront, but you'll get vegetables that are actually fresh, actually nutritious, and actually worth eating. The Canadian grocery industry is broken. These 5 chains are symptoms of a bigger problem: lack of regulation. Profit at all costs. But knowing which stores to avoid is the first step. Now you know. And next time you're standing in that produce section, you'll remember what's really behind those shiny displays. Thanks for watching. If this changed how you think about grocery shopping, you know what to do. And if you've got horror stories from these stores, drop them in the comments. Let's compare notes.